think one of my favorite quotes from you, I think it was from a Bill Moyers interview, was that democracy isn't really a political system, it's a human value, like truth or justice or love. It's one of these things that's endemic to us. Uh, and I feel like one of the people you introduced me to, Gar Alperovitz, and the new economy movement provide a vision for what the future could look like. And just about what you're speaking about, what are some things that we should know about things like cooperatives, community land trusts, participatory economics, even credit unions? Actually, Black Lives Matter in Minnesota started an initiative to start their own credit union, to have economic power consolidated. If you could please speak on these, I'm bursting with
and that's right out of American history.
Georgism.
Freedom America. The most democratic political movement in US history was the populist movement. It's not populism in the sense that the term is used today, which is just a vulgarity. The populist movement it was an agricultural country in the late 19th century. Began in Texas farming, moved to Oklahoma, Kansas, and took over the entire Midwest. Radical farmers saying, we don't want to be controlled by the Northeastern bankers and the guys who lend us money for planting seeds, and then we have to pay usury to pay them back. The Northeastern guys who run the markets, we'll run our own markets. We'll have our own banks, our own credit unions, our own market systems. They were beginning to link up with the Knights of Labor, would have been the incipient labor movement, which tried to organize in places like Louisiana. Had a tough time because they were trying to organize blacks, and the racism was mind-boggling. It was mass murder racism in those days. But they were trying to get together. They were beaten back by force, government force, private security, legislation. Finally managed to wipe it out. But that was the most radical democratic movement in history, straight out of mainstream America, now being revived, like you say, the Black Lives Matter and credit unions. What Gar Alperovitz has been doing is terrific. Organized, it started in the old Rust Belt. So I think the first place was Youngstown, Ohio. U.S. Steel decided to close the major steel plant. That's the plant of where working people had essentially built the community. Youngstown was basically a working class community, workers in the plant. So they say, let's destroy it, because we can make a little more money by moving it to Mexico. These are not people who live there, they don't work there. They live in Chicago or New York, where they're big bankers. So they said, okay, well, let's get rid of this. Well, the workers said, no, we'll buy the plant. The union said, let's buy the plant and run it ourselves. The owners don't want that. I mean, it would be profitable for them to sell it instead of closing it, but it puts the wrong idea into people's heads. It says, you don't need us, you can do it yourself. That's very dangerous. It's like the sit-down strikes. You don't want to, we'll rather lose money than let people have that thought. So they closed it down. Well, then Gar Alperovitz, his group, others, started to move to try to take it to set up worker-owned enterprises that were integrated into the community. Okay, this means things. The community around Cleveland, there's a lot of public enterprises, universities, public institutions, and so on. So they need services. So let's set up a worker-owned laundry, which will provide the services. Works very well. Spread, deliver. It's turned into what you describe as the new democracy movement, trying to organize and develop cooperatives, workaround enterprises, a lot of other things like localist efforts where communities get together to be self-supporting, free from the capitalist ownership. And I should add also Stoughton Lynd, the other person involved. Stoughton Lynd was a radical historian who resigned from Atlanta, the University in Atlanta, Spelman, after they threw out his colleague Howard Zinn because he was supporting students in civil rights activities. Stoughton then resigned in protest. He went on to become a radical lawyer, labor lawyer. He was the one who led the efforts of the union to try to get control of the factory after the bankers threw it out. And he's going on with labor activism and organizing. So this is going on. The new democracy movement's very important, spreading. And the important thing is not just the actions, but getting through to people's heads. You don't have to be slaves. There are other alternatives. There they are. You pick them up and run with them.